Hey everyone, Dr. Devynne here, head coach and owner at Middle Path CrossFit, and one of the doctors of acupuncture and Chinese medicine at Jingshan Healing Arts. I'm sharing this primarily with our gym members at Middle Path who have just undergone a 28-day nutrition jumpstart. We concluded it. Yesterday was the end of our challenge and the end of our 28 days. And so we're left in this place, right, of what next? And okay, that was great. I learned XYZ. But there's a piece of this that I know even for myself, I said, okay, so what now? What's next? Some people are more reflective in their journeys of this is how this went. I didn't go as expected. It went better than expected, whatever that may be. And so, one of the things that I wanted to do was sit down and give an honest reflection and assessment on how the 4 weeks went for me. There's a part of me when I thought about sitting down and doing this that I like, why should I? Why would I? Who will care? And also a piece of I wanted to give this honest feedback for the people who maybe felt like they struggled with the 28 days. I also want to give this as a solid reflection for those who chose not to participate because they felt like they didn't have the time, they couldn't do it correctly, whatever that may be. And also by the time I record this, I have decided that I'm going to go ahead and make this public on our page for anyone on the outside who is watching this and is on their own journey with nutrition. That I am just curious where the conversation goes. I would love feedback from our members. I would love to connect with other people who did the challenge and see where your head is at on the other side of this. We certainly have next steps built in for people to continue this journey. And there's just always a lot of moving parts. But ultimately, I think I needed to record this for myself to hold myself accountable and be honest with how the last 4 weeks have went. And if this stirs something in you and is helpful, great. If it gives you permission to take that first step and do this for yourself, awesome. And if nobody ever sees it, then I also have my own accountability within this and can feel like I can wrap up my 4 weeks as well. A little bit of selfishness in why I wanted to record this, but I also think in having some one-on-one conversations with people, I'm hoping that this will help you in processing your journey with this, whether you started it or whether you chose not to engage with it because you didn't think you could do it well. All of that to say, yeah, our gym community just had an opportunity to take on a 28-day nutrition jumpstart. It's 4 weeks basically designed to create some awareness within our nutrition habits. When we decided to create this for our gym members, we went out of our way to make this overly simplistic because I think it has potential to be a little hand-holding in the beginning, but based on my clinical background as a doctor of acupuncture and Chinese medicine, I know from speaking with people on the regular that food is hard no matter what you're trying to do with it. A lot of people have some sort of hang up around their journey with nutrition, whether they have used food to support them emotionally and in times of stress, or whether they have avoided food altogether. A lot of people have a chapter in their lives where they have challenges with food and nutrition. And it is something that publicly gets talked about, but not in detail. And I think depending on your circles and your support system and how you were brought up, your connection to parents, but also coaches and athletics, it can go so many different directions and it can get complex. And we Google and we say, this is what we need, right? Even within CrossFit, there is definition of nutrition. There are guidelines at which we are encouraged to help members based on our hats as coaches. I do have the extra layer of my clinical hat and my healthcare background to draw into that, which is Part of why we chose to start where we started with the 28 days. So, for those who are not aware, our 28 days lays out basically week one is about creating awareness and starting to ask questions. We invite them to track in some way, shape, or form. That could be through an app, that could be simply keeping a notebook, that could be using the notes section in your phone. But just starting to create a habit of awareness. And that comes from a place of we can't change what we don't know. So we can make all the assumptions in the world that we are eating the wrong things. We can make an assumption that we are eating all the right things, that we are getting enough protein, we're getting enough calories, we're not eating XYZ. And ultimately, we don't know until we have record of it. So the invitation in that first week is to not even change anything about what you're doing, but simply write it down and take notice. And in that, we tease some other questions along the way of how do you feel after you eat? What does that stir in you? Is it easy for you to track? Is it hard for you to track? Did that stir some emotions that you didn't know were there? And ultimately, just start the dialogue with ourselves. The second week, we start talking about water, hydration, and electrolytes, and layering in this idea that just because we're drinking water doesn't mean we're hydrated. We gave obviously some benefits of being hydrated, the benefits of drinking water as far as like life and recovery in the gym. And then we also, on the other side of that, was hey, if you're experiencing XYZ, maybe we should look and see if we're drinking enough water and if we're getting our electrolytes. So we got to connect those pieces. And then weeks 3 and 4, week 3 is about using food as fuel and thinking about calories as gas in the gas tank. And ultimately, from a place of are we getting enough fuel for our bodies, for the life that we are living, for the life that we want to live? And how does that affect us physically, mentally, energetically, right? Do we have enough energy to do the things that we need to do? Do we feel like we're constantly dragging? And went a few different directions there. And then the last week, we covered the macronutrient of protein. A lot of times, nutrition dives into fats, carbs, and proteins. My personal life, according to Devynne, clinical experience is most people do not get enough protein for A, who they are, but also for the work that they are doing, particularly if they're in the gym. And so we choose that as a starting line to, again, pour into this idea of getting enough. Those are the 4 weeks, all of them presented with an angle of invitation and reflection. And how do you typically feel? We created some questions of the day where we asked people, do you eat breakfast? Do you feel satisfied after you eat? Are you hungry again in an hour? Are you overly full? Do you have brain fog? Do you have any issues with your digestion? Have you not even ever thought about these things? And all of that leading us, back to ourselves, again, from a place of reflection. So those were the 4 weeks. We can certainly overcomplicate it, but my belief in what we have built is if we get to the end of those 4 weeks and we can answer those questions and feel pretty solid, we're off to a good start with our nutrition and we can be ready to take it further. But we may also learn a lot about ourselves in terms of maybe we had some triggers that we didn't know we had, and we always skip that step, right? We make it more complicated. We start tracking macros. We start diving into all the whole foods and all of the things and only cook your meals. And it's beautiful and it's wonderful. And it is an awesome place to be in your nutrition journey. And sometimes we need to take a step back and ask ourselves, are we eating enough food? And if we can't consistently eat enough food to fuel ourselves, it doesn't matter how good the quality of the food is if we're not willing to feed ourselves and address why we're not in the first place. This is where my clinical hat layered in quite a bit. And ultimately, working myself through the 4 weeks was an interesting timing with everything. And so that's what I want to share next was my journey as a whole, what came up for me, what my journey with nutrition has been like. And this for me is work that is always happening behind the scenes. And it's not something I have ever really shared with very many people. not to the depth at which I'm probably going to share this now. And I'm curious also to see where I go with this as I chat with you all. But if this helps you in any way, or if you have any questions, just know that Coach is also on her own journey with this. And that is totally okay. For me, the 4 weeks has been interesting because nutrition has always been the area of my training as a CrossFit coach and as a CrossFit athlete that I have struggled with. I have certainly gone through waves and phases over the course of my athletic background of having that super dialed in to completely throwing it out the window and not caring, to trying and putting the effort in, feeling like it's not getting me anywhere, and kind of everything in between. Before I moved out to Montana, I had my training in a place where I felt really supportive to life and to my goals. And I had my nutrition probably dialed in for the first time in a while. I would say 80, 85, 90% doing pretty well. I wasn't not eating out, but I was eating better foods. I was feeding myself enough. I was getting enough protein. Yeah, I just felt really good and really balanced in the life that I was building for myself and where I felt like I was at in training, all of those things. So that was really awesome place for me to be in my own CrossFit journey and my own health journey. I had lost quite a bit of weight and was probably the healthiest I had ever been physically, mentally, emotionally at that point in my life. Then we packed our lives up and moved across the country. And for anybody who has ever built a business or had a big life change where you're just in it and you're grinding all the time, you know that a lot of the health habits go out the window. It was a lot of grabbing food, a lot of pizza, a lot of things that were just not great as we were building our practice out here. And I just never really kicked out of that routine. Even as it got built, as we got to exhale a little more, I just never really clicked out of that. And so I have done really terrible with food and nutrition since we moved to Montana 3 years ago. And I've had different waves of trying to eat healthier and track my macros, and nothing that's ever really stuck. I would say within the last 6 to 8 months, maybe even a little longer, I've done a lot better with that and making intentional choices and really just making the decision to be aware of what I'm taking in, whether it's good or bad, just creating the awareness and not mindlessly going through my day. So that has been a journey that I've been on. So I was really excited for these 4 weeks because I have been doing pretty well compared to what I was. And a conversation I always have is, man, I need this to click this time because I want to feel better. I want to continue to feel stronger in the gym. I want to continue to make progress. So in that, it was really good timing for, okay, this is it. We always tell ourselves this is the time that it's going to stick. The first week of the challenge was great. I had no issues tracking whatsoever. It was really easy. I use an app that's super helpful for my brain. I go back and forth personally between whether an app is helpful or writing it down, but I'm getting less and less resistant to the technology. And so the app was wonderful. I have a history of doing macros already. I know what feels good for my body and different things that I've tried. And so I did take the plunge of trying to hit my macros with the priority be simply lock your food. But in true fashion, I dove all the way in and did really well. I tracked, didn't miss a day. I hit my macros pretty quickly and I felt fantastic. I found myself having more energy. I was making better choices. I had a couple days in that first week where I noticed that if I didn't eat early enough in the day, that I really wrestled with myself at the end of the day to make good choices. But ultimately, I was able to talk myself into not only tracking all 7 days, but making good food choices and hitting my macros. And I would consider that week perfection. And it was great. And it was very exciting. And I carried that into the front half of week 2. I have been doing pretty good with water for, again, probably about 6 to 8 months. And I was surprised. One of our questions of the day was, how much water do you think you average? And I hadn't really done the math on it, but my water bottle is 32 ounces. I didn't know that. And I drink a good 4 of those a day typically. And so I was really excited to learn that I was actually getting enough water. I do the podium salts. And so I know I'm getting my electrolytes and ultimately have that pretty dialed in. But the back half of week 2, life shifted a little bit. And I say that not as an excuse, but as I decided to make different choices. And one bad meal turned into a bad day, turned into, I'll just start again as we get through the weekend, still tracking. But as the macros slipped a little bit, ultimately I just fell back a little bit and wasn't too worried about it mentally. And then as I went into that third week, I was just busier, more stress, routine changed a little bit, and I just threw it all out the window and was like, this just feels ultimately, it just feels like one more thing on my plate that I just don't want to have to think about. And that's how my relationship with nutrition has been. And so that week was instantly back to bad habits. I was grabbing food after work. I was not eating breakfast, going a long time without getting a lot of food. I stopped thinking about my protein and all of the things. And I just washed the week, and which was really challenging from a coach's perspective, where we're trying to encourage and keep other people on track and support them. That's always been challenging for me. I won't lie about it if somebody asks, but not being able to do my part in that makes it even harder for me to show up for other people in that. And I knew at this point in the challenge, other people were also struggling with their own journeys. And so we got to talk about it. And it's okay that it's not perfect. Try again next meal, try again next day. And I would say that for me was probably a huge area of growth. I had very little frustration about it, disappointed that, again, here I am not able to stick to this thing that I am doing. But I also recognized my all inness a couple weeks ago and know that is not the thing that ever sustains me. And ultimately, I had the same invitation for myself that we were giving our members to try again at the next meal, pick it back up. The one thing that I can say coming out of week 3 is that mentally going into this last week, I just reset back at the basics. And that's what I told myself going into week 4, that yes, this week within the challenge is about protein, but what do I need to feel like this is supportive and isn't me trying to bite off more than I can chew? And for me, anytime I need to reset is make sure I eat breakfast and make sure I'm hitting my protein goals, period. And I don't try to tackle anything else. I don't create a lot of judgment around anything else that I'm eating. I know that if I can eat breakfast, it sets me up for success of the day. And if I know that I'm getting enough protein, that I am supporting my body with the movement that I'm doing in the gym. And then the rest is just kind of bonus. And so I was able to go into week 4, not necessarily focused on the intention of the week, but I got my feet back underneath me without all of the extra pressure of everything that I was feeling from the previous couple weeks. So I chalked that up for myself as progress and finished strong in that way, hitting my protein goals, feeling good about just showing up for myself. And I say all of that because I know that we've had some people that took on the challenge. And I think collectively as a community, we came out really strong. And it's easy to do when it's exciting and it's new and it's all of these things. We had some people have a really solid week 1 and 2. 3 was tough. 4 was fine. We had some people that weeks 1 and 2 were challenging, and 3 and 4 is where we gathered momentum. And everyone's experience was so different with this. I really enjoyed, for those of you that shared with me what was going on, just know that I really appreciate your willingness to share that. It's super helpful as a coach to know what's going on, what's not going well, but it was also super helpful for me as a person to feel like we're in it with someone and talking with people also gives me an opportunity to take my own advice. And I know that it wasn't the easiest. Like some people had weirder work hours. Some of you had some life stuff pop up in the middle of this. And ultimately, I think what I want everyone to take away from this is that's life. And it's not going to be perfect. The expectation of this entire 4 weeks was not perfection, it was awareness and intention. And so if you did it, great. If you didn't, totally fine. If you came out of that aware of what worked and what didn't work. And so that leaves us in a place on the other side of these 4 weeks of, so what's next? The intention is not to restart the 4 weeks. You already did it. You built this relationship of awareness. And if you need to give yourself a little more time, give yourself more time. This is step number one. What I want our members and our community and anybody who takes this on that wants to change their nutrition and change their habits, what I want people to take away from this is if this was hard, we don't need to make it more complicated. It doesn't mean we don't get to keep trying, and it doesn't mean that we can't keep showing up for ourselves. What it means is we may not be ready for the shiny new thing that we think is going to solve it until we're ready to show up for ourselves. And that's what this 4 weeks was about, was an opportunity to continue to show up, to either start that conversation with ourselves or continue it and see where it leads us. What I'm taking out of these 4 weeks for myself is no matter how good I feel like I'm doing, I can't get distracted. Part of the thing in the beginning was the distraction, but I am also in a place with my own personal work journey beyond nutrition that if I do too much too fast, it feels incredibly overwhelming to everything else that is happening. And I have to make more decisions around what actually feels supportive and nourishing to me, not just on a food level, but across the board so that I don't feel like I'm starting and stopping all the time. One of the places that I really struggle with my own personality is that truth and reality? And it's a kind of a constant question in my life right now. Or am I making an excuse for not trying harder? And nobody gets an opinion on that or gets a vote on that. That is me sitting with myself and being honest with where I am. And most of the time, I think it's a little bit of both. I think that I could put more effort into the things that I do. I could try harder. And I am in an interesting chapter of my own journey and life right now that I think my expectation of it being what I want it to be and need it to be may be different than I've done it in the past. And so I am trying to find new ways to not just keep trying the same thing over and over again so that it's not working, right? And so I get to keep playing, and that's how I approach it for myself is play and exploration. And as I sit here on the other side of these 4 weeks and talking with people who completed the challenge, my invitation for myself and my invitation to you, if you're watching this and you started this journey, no matter where you're at in it, ask yourself what worked. Instead of trying to fix what feels broken or what didn't work and the stubbornness around needing XYZ to happen, ask yourself what went really well and keep pouring into that. So for me, it is breakfast and it's protein. No matter how I'm getting it in, whether it's through a protein shake or a protein bar, if I can eat whole foods, beautiful. And at the end of the day, with the goals that I have in training and with how I want to feel, I need to make sure that I'm getting my protein. If I can eat breakfast every day and I can consistently hit my protein goals and I can make sure that I'm drinking enough water, at the end of the day, when I go to bed, I can feel good about the work that I put into my nutrition today. The next layer of that is getting dinner in sooner. I can't get dinner in sooner until I know that I'm more consistent with how I am at the front of the day. And so those are my goals that I set for myself that I know make me feel good, even if I'm not doing well. And I also have to look back at where I was 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and say, I was only hitting my goals maybe 10% of the time when we moved out here. And I would venture to say I'm 60, 70% of the time, I'm doing pretty well. And so that's also how I see growth for myself. I'm not gonna get comfortable in that. I want to do better, and I would love to get back to where I was before, but I also have to acknowledge the journey that it's been, and I am doing better now than I was doing a year ago, and I'm doing even better than I was doing 2 years ago or 3 years ago, and so that progress looks different. And as you're thinking about this for yourself, or if you're thinking about starting this journey, if you're a member who has access to this, if you're a patient who happens to be watching this, and we've talked about nutrition, or we haven't, and it hasn't come up yet, let's chat about it and let's set some attainable goals. Don't get super crazy. The starting line that we created was intentionally basic because it is hard. It's hard to show up for ourselves consistently every day and to show up for ourselves multiple times a day when it comes to nutrition and making good choices. And we're running a marathon. We're not sprinting here, and settle in for that. If you need help on a mindset level of, I'm having a hard time seeing what I did well, let's chat about it, because signing up could have been the hard step. And if you didn't even open the course, now we need to open it, right? And we need to take that first step. And if you didn't sign up because you felt you didn't want to fail, or you don't feel like this is a good time, there's never going to be a good time. We talk about this with CrossFit. There's no perfect time to start a health and fitness journey. There's not going to be a better time to pick up nutrition. You can't wait for the I don't have a work trip, or so and so is coming in town. And none of that has to be miserable. You don't have to meal prep your food and not enjoy the thing that you're wanting to eat with family. Eat the pizza, eat the damn donut, eat whatever you need to do, and just write it down. That was the invitation. Just start tracking, just start collecting data, because from there we can make different choices and we can create different decisions as we move forward. This is probably going to be a controversial perspective when it comes to nutrition, even from a CrossFit coach and from a healthcare provider who is working with patients. But it's real. It is what my journey has been, and that's okay. Some people click with that piece really well and they're diving all in, and it's great. And you know what? I appreciate the step that I am at in my journey. I appreciate what the journey has been. And I would love to look back in 6 months and say that it's different and that I'm in a different phase of this. But right now, this is where I am, and I am better for it than where I was a couple years ago. And you can't get to better if you don't start now. And what we need to continue is dialogue around all of this. So, to our members who took on the challenge, I'm proud of you all for signing up and taking it on and being willing to try, no matter how good you did, how good you think you did, any of that. You tried by simply showing up. And for those of you that didn't sign up, it's okay that you didn't sign up. My invitation to you in that is ask yourself why. And if it's because you don't care, and I mean that in a not bad way, then that's totally cool. If you have your own history with food, that's okay. I would chat with some people who did the challenge and ask them what their experience has been and just start taking it on. Our avoidance of the work that we need to do doesn't get us any closer. And I also know that I have talked with people in the past who thought they were absolutely crushing nutrition. They eat pretty healthy, and yet they're tired, their hormones are out of balance, they feel very foggy, they don't sleep well. whatever that may be. And my curiosity in that is, what if it could be better? So, a lot of different things in this video. If you took the time to watch this and it was helpful for you at all, and you're a member especially, I'd love to chat with you about it. But also, hopefully, that tells you that what I wanted to come out of this is that the goal was not perfection. We all have our own journey with this. And if you want to sit down and share with me what your journey was, or you need help with next steps, let me know. Our accountability group is open and available within our platform, The Art of Nourishing Life. So stay connected in there. We're going to have a lot more information coming to you guys soon. But yeah, if you got all the way through this, thank you for listening. And if you need to connect or want to connect about any of this, let me know. And yeah, we'll chat soon.